Today's topic is painless and efficient ways to do usability testing. Why did we want to share this with you all? Because like it or not, you being aware of not, if you are building something, you are making design decisions. Again, if you're building something, you are most likely making design decisions, and not all of us are aware of that. And we usually, when we're starting especially, make terrible design decisions. So here we are talking about how can you make better design decisions, and we're going to share things that we ourselves have learned throughout our lives as designers and researchers, and things that we've done here at DigitalOcean to offer a better, more simple service. Now, for those of you who don't know, a usability test, a usability study is usually very simple. When you bring someone from the outside to wherever you are making those design decisions, you share whatever you're building with them, and you ask for feedback. Just as simple as that. And even as that sounds simple, not everyone does it. We believe that because we can build it, it's going to be okay. And let me tell you, it's usually not. That's why you should ask for feedback. Great. So what are you going to get out of this today? We're going to talk about the what, when, and with whom to do these usability testings. We're going to talk about what to do before, during, and after, and a couple of different tips on how to be successful at usability testing. So, are you up for the ride? I'm gonna say like they do in airlines. So, if you're not going to France, leave the airplane now, or go with us. Anyways, okay. Why should I test or validate what I'm building? Let me give you a couple of examples. I'm going to take you back to the beginning of the month when my wife and I started our journey, our vacation journey. We started with a Sarah Bareilles concert and interview at the Times Talks in the New York Times building. She's like, okay, here's the ticket. I'm sending you the email with the tickets. You can get them there. I open it in my mobile phone because I was mobile, I was going to the event, and I say, okay, email, nice, clicked on view tickets, takes me to this page, nice, there's a barcode, that's my ticket, right? No. If you look at the fine print, right, says, print your ticket prior to arrival. Why? Why? There is a barcode there, and it's in my hand. Can you scan it? No. Apparently someone in the New York Times decided that you must bring a waste of tree with you so that you can enter into our place. Somebody make a design decision. Now, mind you, you can make design decisions about a service, about a physical space. This is not only about digital decisions. This is a decision about me entering into a room or not, because I don't have a piece of paper. Somebody didn't test this properly. I mean, luckily, I love reading instructions. Some people don't. So I printed it. All is well. Don't worry, I made it to the concert. She was lovely. Anyways, second example, Colin. Before we start, Colin, let me give you some context. So, as I told you, we were going on vacation. We're going to Mexico, visit family and friends. It's a 4.5 hours flight from New York to Mexico City. We were going to watch some movies. So my wife was getting ready to see what we were going to watch on the plane. And iTunes was telling her, your iPad is full. You must delete some movies. So here's what happened. Actually, this is me trying to do it after she tried to do it. And she's like, I figured it out, but I want you to try it. Colin, please. So no, the other one. This one, yes. Thank you. So we were going to delete 50 First Dates because we've watched it more than 50 times. Okay, so details. There's no button here to delete. Up and down, nothing. Okay, let's go back and see if I press really hard. Nothing. Nothing again. If it didn't happen once, why do you try it again? Okay, let's go to the list of movies. Nothing here that looks like checkboxes. Okay, let's go back here again. Nothing. Ah! Did you catch that? No! It was a message that says download it, where you click on download it, and then you have the opportunity to delete the message, to delete the movie. Somebody at Apple made that design decision. Now, mind you, I most likely was so fed up that I was like, F this, we're not watching anything, we're going to Netflix. Okay, so we were able to download movies, whatever. Next, please, before we watch this video, we make it to Mexico, and we are deciding where to meet a friend. So we decided in this lovely restaurant called La Vaca Argentina. It's a nice steakhouse in Guadalajara, Mexico. And my wife was trying to make a reservation. This is a surprisingly very mobile-friendly restaurant website, which doesn't usually happen. But let me show you what happens when we try to make a reservation. So, nice mobile-friendly website. You can go to the gallery, and they have pictures of the restaurant, and then you can go to the menu, and then you can go to reservations. You can go to reservations. What the heck? Oh, it's down there. Yes. And then once you make it there, they have a mix of cities and zones in Guadalajara. Somebody made that design decision. And this is a restaurant website. What if you were making an application to get insulin as a diabetic, and I was not able to make an appointment? So this is, again, I did not get a steak, but I could potentially not get an insulin shot because you made a bad design decision. Great. Now that I have your attention, let me tell you that even though we do this as creators, as builders, your users will find a way to do it, to get what they need to do. So, Colin, can you help me with that? Yes. Example, we are now in Mexico. And this is what happens when you make bad design decisions. People find a way. On the left, you can see a lovely gentleman trying to move 5 PVC pipes in a taxi because the taxi doesn't have a way to haul PVC pipes. On the right side, we have a nice box of Kleenex on the seat because that car doesn't have a way to put Kleenex in the back seat of the car. And this is an Uber. People find a way. But let me remind you, that way could be your users going somewhere else. Yes, that happens. We actually watch a Netflix movie instead of an iTunes movie. Apple might have gotten our money, but I was so fed up that we decided to go to Netflix. And that can happen to you. Great. Do I have your attention now? Excellent. So, why should you test? Well, as I'm telling you, it helps you validate that what you are deciding, whether you realize it or not, the decisions you're making might be the wrong ones. So it helps you validate those decisions. It gives you an external point of view. It is always helpful to have an external point of view. And most of all, it allows you to talk to those who use your products or might use your products. So, when should you be doing usability testing? Always. That's never going to happen. So, here's some pointers on when you should do it. So, with the moment you realize, damn it, I've never talked to anyone about this, that is the moment when you should do it. when you have a major redesign in front of you, when you are building something new, whether it's a new feature or is your new company, your new app. Talk to them. When things are actually not going the way you want them to be going. Let's say that your sales are down. Let's say that your usage is down. Then you should talk to people. When you don't want to spend time later fixing a problem, then take advantage of you realizing that something's wrong. Do it now. Use 2 days instead of 2 months trying to fix the problem you could have solved today. So, with whom should I test? Well, the answer is not just anyone, because I hear that a lot. Oh, this is a thing for anyone, so I'm just gonna go outside and talk to the guy sweeping the floor. No, even Facebook has specific users that they target. So most likely you will have a specific group of people to whom you need to talk to. So think about when you're trying to narrow, okay, who is this group of people I need to talk to? Think about who has the need that you're trying to fulfill, who has the means to pay you. Let's say that you are, I don't know, building a high-end jeans provider. Well, not everyone will be able to pay for that. So then test your product with those who might be able to buy it. You need to talk about what is the age range that you are trying to target. Again, let's go back to the diabetes example. You probably are targeting elderly in your example, so don't test this with a 15-year-old who, even though they eat 15 donuts, they don't get fat. Stupid youngsters. Anyways, think about who has the equipment in which you're going to be actually building for. If you're building a mobile application, testing with someone that has a mobile device. So, are we getting close to think about it? Are you getting any ideas on how to test? Great. I'm gonna quiz you. So, how do I get a hold of these people? The easiest answer, but not the cheapest one, is there are recruiting companies actually that you can give them. I'm looking for people of this age, this income, that they live here, and they have access to XYZ. But usually those are a little bit costly, but know that they exist. Now, if you don't have the means to get those services, then you can go to a meetup on the specific topic. You can use Craigslist, Facebook, Twitter, and say, hey, I am looking for this type of people. I invite you to a usability test. You can actually go to where they meet. If you are doing a software for writers, for television, most likely you'll find them at Starbucks. Then go to a Starbucks and give them a $5 gift card. Then you get some ideas on how to actually get them. But these are usually examples of how to successfully get someone to talk to. How do you know that they are the right group of people? We usually use something we call a screener. Even if it's a 2-question screener, it'll allow you to know if the person that you might consider as a subject is the right subject. So ask them, for example, do you visit this location frequently? How frequently? Let's say you are, I don't know, doing an application about subway scheduling. Well, then ask them, do you use the subway? If not, then they're not going to give you useful feedback. You can ask them, do you do this in every so often? If you're actually building, I don't know, new skis that slide faster in the snow. Well, ask them, how often do you ski? And if they say never, then move over to talk to someone else. So do you hear where I'm going? This screener actually helps you to decide this is going to be the right person to talk to or not. Again, even if it has 2 questions, that's more useful than you wasting your time, you wasting their time. And here are a couple of questions that we should get. But I am exactly my own user. Why do I need to talk to someone else? You have no idea the amount of times I hear that. It happens here. DigitalOcean is a majority software application developer company. And when I started 2 years ago and I said we need to go out there and talk to our users and potential users, many of them said, but we're software developers, why don't you talk to us? It took some strength for me to not punch anyone in the face. I didn't want to lose my job, number one. But anyway, even if you're your own user, even if you're close to your user, most likely you don't use your services the same way they would. So you should always go out there and talk to someone else. Can I just talk to the same people every time? Sure, you can. But then you're going to get the exact same information every time. They're going to be biased because they have already seen things that you've shown them. So you're not going to get the full spectrum of the picture. So find new people. If you're testing something new, then yeah, maybe go back to the same person because they're seeing something new out of you. And maybe the information you get has a little bit more context, but not the same thing every time. Can I just run an A/B test? Sure, you can, but it's going to be faulty. You're going to be testing two things that have had zero feedback. So good luck with that. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Isn't all this time consuming? Yes. But again, do you want to spend 2 days doing this or 2 months fixing something you could have catched in the 2 days that you could have spent this time? So think about that. Okay, how many? How many people do I need to talk to really to get good information? Well, thankfully, Nielsen Norman did this work for us, and they run a study in which they realized that beyond 5 users, you start getting the same information over and over again. So if you talk to between 5 and 8 people, that's enough. You don't have to talk to 50. Talk to 5 to 8 people, and you're going to get valuable information. And you run this yourself. You talk to 10, you're going to see that by the 6th or 7th, you're going to start getting the same information. So it doesn't take that much. Great. Now, if all fails and you can't get a hold of the specific group of people that you need, just talk to anyone. Any feedback is better than zero feedback. We do it here. Usually when we don't have time to gather or actually recruit users, we go to the people team. They're very, very, very far removed from what we're doing, so they can give you a fresh perspective. Maybe your grandma has awesome ideas, or your little brother. Anyone is better than no one. Okay, so now that we know who and when, let's talk about what you should be doing before executing a usability test. So, here are some tips. You should schedule more than 5 to 8. Why? Because people are going to drop off. People lie. They're going to tell you, sure, I'll be there. I would love to spend 30 minutes with you, and then they don't come. Just like your boyfriend that you broke up with. So, Shika here is our awesome recruiter, and she actually recruits way more than actually we need. I would suggest if you're going to do 5 to 8, recruit 10 to 15 so that you have a cushion right there. Offer some incentive, even if it's a thank you note. Give them something in return so that they don't feel that you use them, just like your boyfriend did. Use a scheduling tool, even if it's a spreadsheet, just so that you don't forget when is someone coming, who is this person, so that you have some information about it. Calendly is a great tool that it's online. It has a free tier, so have at it, use it. Leave yourself some time for pre and post session changes. Somebody might be in the meeting room that you're going to use right before your schedule, so don't schedule right before. And your session might be running late, so leave yourself some cushion. You might have to change something out of your discussion guide right after a session, so leave time in between. And most importantly, remember that you, as the person running the study, need some breaks, some rest, and importantly, don't schedule on top of your lunchtime. I've done that in the past, and it sucks. Because by the time you are on the fifth or sixth session, you're not paying attention. So be mindful of your time as well. Excellent. So we've talked about when and who and how to bring them in, learn them to you. But what should I be testing? Well, the answer is not just everything or anything. Think about what your business objective is. Think about what the user need that you're fulfilling is. Think about what are the tasks on which you need the most feedback or thoughts on. That is what you should be testing. That thing that we talk about, the new thing, or the thing that is not going as well, or you don't have any idea on what to do next, then you could actually test one of your flows and see if there's questions from the users on those flows, and that will start sparking some ideas. If possible, I want to highlight this one. If possible, test an entire user journey, an entire flow, not just a specific task. Why? Because that's going to give you a sliver, a slice of what you are providing to users from A to Z. Let's say that you are an e-commerce platform. Ideally, you should be testing from the moment they see an ad in Google to the moment they land in your website to the moment they purchase it. And even if you can test the return process, that'd be amazing. Why? Because then you can see through their eyes the whole user journey that they go through. I know it takes a little bit of time, but it's an ideal situation. You could be testing just the return process if you want to, but go a little bit after and a little bit before so that you have an idea of the context of that experience. Important, once you decide what you're testing, you should write a discussion guide. That's a simple pointer for you to remember what you're going to be going through. And also, so that it is a little bit more objective, you should be asking your users the same thing. You should be going through the same flow every time so that you don't get disparate and crazy feedback because you ask everyone the same thing. Great. Now, right before, you have your user in front of you, you successfully recruit them, they arrive, they didn't stood you up, they didn't stand you up, stupid past tense. They didn't stand you up. What should you do? Well, number one, make them feel at ease. So welcome them to your session. You can use sentences like, this is not a test for you. Some people get anxious and say, you call this a test? Am I being tested? There are no right or wrong answers. We're actually evaluating this system. We want to know what you think about it. So make them feel at ease. You can tell them, I did not design this, so you're not going to make me feel bad with the feedback you give me. It is usually a lie, especially at the stage that most of you are. You probably are the ones that designed this. So suck it up. We're going to give you feedback and keep a straight face. And you can lie about it so that they give you feedback. Anyways, at that point, you can go through any legalese. If your company requires NDAs, if you're recording the session, most likely you should so that you can go back to it. But you need to let them know, we're recording the session, and let them know what are you going to be doing with those recordings. Here, for example, no one else outside of DigitalOcean sees those videos, and then that puts them at ease. And they realize that that red light means they're being recorded, instead of asking you, what are you doing? That has happened to me. And then explain what will the session cover. We're going to go through a couple of tasks. I want to hear your thoughts about it. At the end, I'm going to give you a little bit more time for thoughts. Don't spill the beans. Don't screw the surprise, because you want honest feedback. Just be vague about it's going to take 30 minutes, it should be painless, etc., etc. Great. So, what should you be doing during this exercise for success? Well, every task will require a warm-up for you to not start just cold. If you are, again, I don't know, creating an app for booking hotels, you can ask them, please remember that last time you booked a hotel online. How did it go? Why did it go so badly? Or why did it go well? That will allow them to come to that mindset. Remember that session that they had on their own so that they can provide you the best feedback possible on that specific task. Instead of you showing them the app and say, what do you think about it? By you warming up the session, you are bringing them back to that mental state. Describe the outcome that you want. So in this task, I would love for you to do X. I would love for you to book a flight. I would love for you to book a hotel room. What would you do now? That way they have an objective in mind. But be mindful of not stress them and say, if you don't accomplish it, that means you failed. No, again, I would ideally would like for you to get here, but let's talk through the process and let me know what goes through your mind. Open questions. Everyone knows here what an open question is, because we've had that question a lot. Our product managers had trouble understanding the difference between an open question and a closed question. Great, I see heads nodding, so I'm assuming y'all know what an open question is. Great. Well, use them. Use mostly open questions. Why? Because that way you get more information out of a monosyllabic answer. Don't ask, do you like it? Because they'll probably tell you no or yes, but that's useless. But if you ask them things like, is this what you were expecting to happen? Why or why not? And the most important one is down here. What are you thinking right now? They most likely will be very quiet because usually we don't say what we're thinking. Very few people do it. It is your task to maintain that conversation. One of the things we usually say at the beginning is, I would love for you to turn on your out loud mind and tell me everything that you're thinking. That way you're getting the feedback exactly the way they're thinking. But again, they will forget, and you can ask. So we landed in this page. We landed in this screen. What are you thinking about it? And they'll tell you, which is better than a monosyllabic answer. Great. There's also space for quantitative. Why do I do this to myself? Quantitativeness. Sure. Whatever. You can use quantitative information. At the end of a task, at the end of the session, you could actually go through a customer satisfaction interview and ask them, okay, how satisfied are you with this session, with this flow? Would you do it again? Would you recommend it to someone? That would be an NPS. You could do a system usability scale as well and say, okay, how useful was this to go through? They can give you a number. Why? Because then you can go back and check what the number was between the users. But also, if you do this test again in your next iteration, you can see the differentiation quantitatively, not only qualitatively. You can do a principle-based score. If you already define what your design principles are, you could test against them. For example, one of our design principles is that DigitalOcean does things for me that I don't have to do myself, because we want to do things automated. We can ask them, okay, if this sentence, do you agree or disagree? DigitalOcean does this for me, but that I don't have to. They can give you a 1 because they have to do everything themselves. That means you're not accomplishing your design principles. Great. Moving on. Other tips as you're going through this session. Again, you need to keep the time because you most likely are talking to how many people? 5 to 8, yes, not just one. So you might be having another person coming, so keep track of the time and also keep the subject on track. They might come and start talking about something else, but you have things to ask them, so keep them on track. Remember your poker face. You have no idea the amount of people I've seen that are doing a usability test, and they're just cringing, seeing the user not looking, not finding the button they want. They even have bursted and say, "The button is right there." Keep your poker face. Oh, what are you looking for right now? Why are you not moving forward in your session? Yes. By the way, I looked for GIFs from Lady Gaga and Poker Face, but I didn't find it. So pretend that there's a GIF of Lady Gaga's going Poker Face. Anyways, that is important. Why? Because that will keep, again, the subject at ease if you don't panic. Even if you design that and you are realizing that you suck at what you just did, maintain a poker face. Say, "Oh, I'm sorry you're not able to accomplish that. What were you expecting to happen?" And they will give you information about it rather than you saying, "Let's move forward, that's the button." That will be useless. Great. Okay, have someone to help you if you can. It is very useful to have another person, whether it's remotely looking at the video or with you taking notes, so that you can take a hold of the session yourself and you don't have to worry about documenting the session. Adjust after every session if needed. Some companies, some people actually go through to the extent of actually changing the code of what they're testing after a session so that they can actually check the improvement throughout the session. Now, don't make dramatic changes because that means you're actually not testing the same thing. It could be a color, it could be a word that actually makes a little bit of an impact. But you might want to change a little bit of your discussion guide. You might want to make some notes, something you don't want to forget. That's why you also need to leave some space between sessions. Very important, this one. You are not assessing if they like what you're showing them. This is not a like or dislike thing. We're not producing Game of Thrones here. We are testing the usability. We're testing if they are able to accomplish the task or not. So one question that you should never ask is, did you like it? Because that is going to be useless to you. One thing that we haven't talked about it, but you can actually do this whole thing in one of your competitors. When I was working at Zappos, we actually did it. You don't have to tell them, but you can bring them and do the same task with one of your competitors and see how your users or potential users are actually using your competitors' services. That's going to give you a lot of information. You can actually do a competitive analysis. You can show them your competitors do the same task, and then show them yours and see how they compare. You can ask them, okay, which one felt more usable? Which one accomplished the task much faster? And that allows you to learn about your competitors without you having to be doing the research yourself. You're getting the feedback from your users. And last but not least, this is not a science. This is not going to be perfect. Just ride with it. Again, you are getting feedback, and any feedback is better than no feedback. So run with the punches. You're going to have to adapt as the sessions go, but you have your discussion guide that will allow you to be guided through the session. So here's something that usually junior designers confront, and it is okay. You will encounter a session where you will not be getting information from the user. And you'll be like, I'm not getting anything out of this user. Or your screener didn't actually work and this is not the right person for you to be testing with. It is okay to stop a session. Be nice about it. You can be like, great, we're done. This was only 10 minutes, I lied to you. And move on. Why? Because then you don't waste time about that, and you can actually go back and adjust your screener or your discussion guide, or go have the lunch that you didn't schedule for. It is okay to stop a session and move on. Or if that person actually has a plethora of information that you can get a hold of. You could also stop the session and talk about something else. You have the opportunity to talk to this person about what they are experts on, as long as it is going to be useful for your project, of course. So be mindful of that. Okay, so you've gone through the sessions. The 5 to 8 person arrived. You even need 10. Yes, you feel great about yourself. What do you do with all this information? Very important part. Well, put it in one place, and most importantly, start finding patterns about what you gather from these sessions. There are methodologies like affinity maps, like the rainbow spreadsheets, but most importantly, it also will allow you to prioritize amongst severity and frequency. Many people tell us, I have 100 quotes from our users. I have 100 bits and pieces of information. What do I do with all this? Well, you can do an exercise with your team and say, okay, how severe is this usability problem? And how often did it come in the sessions? And that crisscross of data can give you a little bit of prioritization. Those who are the most severe and the most frequent should be the things that you tackle first and second and third. Most importantly as well, or importantly as well, share your findings. Write an email with quick and dirty pain points and say, hey, these are the most important things that we found. You can do a quick sharing time with your company and say, we just came out of 2 days of this. Here's the most important things we found. If you have any ideas, please bring them to us. But you're sharing, most important thing is that you share what you found. Don't put it in a drawer. Do a highlight reel. If you're recording the session, some softwares allows you to pick and choose different points of those videos and create a highlight reel so that you can convince that engineer that didn't want to do what you wanted to do. Here's 5 users saying they couldn't find that stupid button. Proof. You have proof. But most importantly, do not spend 2 weeks writing a beautiful report that no one will read. That is 10 years old. That is 10 years old practice. Don't do that anymore. Just act quickly on what you found. Okay, what do you do with your users? Follow up quickly. Send them a thank you note. Actually give them the compensation that you said you were going to give them, if you can immediately. And you could also share the next steps and say, hey, thank you for coming 2 weeks ago with the feedback you gave us. This is the result. I would love to hear your thoughts on what we did. That also will make them feel good. They'll talk about you. And if you can even ask them, hey, do you have someone else with whom we can test this? That could be also a recruiting way of doing it. Great. Also, act on your findings. Do the next iteration. Delegate and say, hey, we found this. Can you please go fix it? Here's proof that it's wrong. Iterate and do another test. A couple of other 2 days, a couple of weeks later won't harm you. The contrary, you are actually making improvements quickly with what you're doing. You can actually make a case for a change. You might have a VC that doesn't believe on what you're saying that you should have changed. You can make a case to your co-founder and say, here, that thing that I told you I thought it was wrong, it is actually wrong. Here's proof. You can make a case to your own self and say, okay, now I get it. Because I went outside and tested it, that means I'm actually not my users and I was wrong. Here is where you can do an A/B test. Why? Because now you have feedback. You could actually say, okay, the red button didn't work, then let's try green and blue. And you can automate that, but now you're doing an A/B testing that is based on actual user feedback, not just the 2 versions that you thought were the best. Okay, more questions from the audience. But do I have to test everything? No. As I was telling you, test something that is new. Test that thing that is not going as good as you thought it was going to be going. Test that new piece of information that you are putting in the website. But most importantly, test something, because that will allow you to improve that, even that little piece that you're building. What if I don't have enough budget? These things that I'm giving you have a very, very, very small cost. And believe me, if you don't do this early, you will have even less budget than what you have today. What if I have no time? Again, what would you like to use? 2 days today or 2 months later fixing that thing that you could have addressed? So there is always time to do what we call a quick and dirty usability testing. Okay, now that you've done everything, I have a bad news. It's not one and done. You need to do this over and over again. And again, I call this job security. You have to be always testing. Or what I like to say, always be in touch with those who use your products or services, or those who might, in order to have a fresh and outside perspective so that you are on top of the issues or potential opportunities for improvement in the future. But that would be a very lengthy initialism, so we're going to stay with ABT. Always be testing as much as you can so that you can continuously improve and listen to what your users are telling you. Okay, if you take a picture of any of the slides, this is the one. Here's an easy checklist on what actually you need to do this. Quick and dirty usability testing. You need who is your ideal user, invitations, a screener to get the right people, what are you testing, the discussion guide what you're testing, the prototype on which you're going to be testing. Now, we didn't really talk about this because it's not necessarily the topic, but this could be pieces of paper. You could be showing them screens on paper and say, okay, let's pretend that your finger is your mouse. Where would you click? It doesn't have to be a fancy prototype. That will give you more feedback than no feedback, again. Ideally, where to record sessions, some other pointers. Usertesting.com and lookback.com are good online tools to actually record usability testings. Usertesting.com actually allows you to automate usability testing. You put the tasks in there and you send them to the ether, and then you get back videos of your users. But it has to be a very specific task to use an automated usability testing tool. And then the different synthesis tools. Now, as part of this series, Colleen here, our lead user researcher, will be having a session on synthesizing and what do I do with all this information. So come back to that session. Next, in Hatch 101, Colleen will decipher what means to synthesize.
Sure.
Yes, great. And you're done. You iterated and improved.